Today's video might feel a little bit ranty, so if you're interested in those kinds of things, this video might be for you. But there's really no such thing as mastering the guitar. Making progress on the guitar, like most important things in life, is a lifelong process, this infinite journey that we get to go on. Much like learning how to be someone who knows how to forgive others. There's no mastering forgiveness. You just continue to practice. You get better and better at forgiveness. Or you could think about leadership. Maybe you're in a leadership position at work, or you're in a leadership position in your family. You have other family members who look up to you and require your leadership. There's no mastering leadership, right? It's leadership is this thing where it's always presenting new and different and interesting challenges. And the moment you have something figured out, stuff changes and you need to rise to the occasion, rise to the new challenge. And the guitar is the same exact way. It's one of the reasons why I love studying jazz music and studying with incredible jazz musicians, is because jazz guitarists are some of the most humble guitarists you'll ever meet. They're also the best guitar players, just in terms of knowledge, expression, musicality, discipline, athleticism, like just the ability to execute things on the guitar. Of course, other genres of music are incredible. I don't think that jazz is the best genre of music. I don't even listen to jazz all the time. But in terms of studying with people and learning from people, it's hard to find a better examples than jazz guitar players, because they have to learn so much and they have to be an independent individual to be able to express themselves, and it has to sound good. It has to sound beautiful. If you don't sound good on the jazz scene, like, people aren't going to call you for stuff. So jazz musicians, they're so humble because they've learned so much. They've learned so much about music theory, about the guitar itself, about performing, about improvising, about recording, about leading a band, about playing on the gigs. And there's this really interesting thing that happens in life, and with the guitar specifically, is the more that you learn about the guitar, the better you can see that there's even more to learn. So in the very beginning, you're learning your open chords. You know C, and then you know G, right? And then you're flipping through your guitar book, or your teacher is telling you about the different chords, and you think to yourself, okay, there's these like 5 to 10 chords I gotta learn down here. And you're thinking, man, I know these 2 chords, C and G, but now I gotta learn D and A minor and A7 and E minor and E7 and B7 and yada yada yada. And you're thinking, man, I know these 2 chords, now I gotta learn all these 10 chords, right? And then you get to the point where you learn your first scale. It's probably A minor pentatonic. That's what most guitar teachers teach as the first scale. And then once you learn that one scale, you learn that you might have to play it in different keys all over the neck, and that there's 4 other shapes of the minor pentatonic scale. And then you got the major pentatonic scale. And then you start to realize, well, in addition to the pentatonic scales, you've got the 7 modes and the 3 minor scales and Maybe you've heard some people talk about some exotic scales like Phrygian dominant, and then you're thinking, how many scales are there, right? And then you go to university or you study in a guitar program that's actually going to teach you, the stuff that you need to know, and you learn about all these scales. Like you learn that, okay, Phrygian dominant, it's got a flat nine, it's got a major third, it's got a regular four, it's got a regular five, it's got a flat six, it's got a flat seven. You're like, okay, I understand Phrygian dominant, and you understand all these scales. But then you got to put it on the fretboard. You got to be able to play these scales in all positions and all 12 keys. And then once you can play it in all the positions, again, I'll stop now. But I'm just letting you know that that's the experience of the guitar. If you're someone who really wants to study the information and really kind of, and if you like understanding why things work the way that they do, then that's the experience of studying the guitar. Is the more that we learn, the more that we understand that, oh man, there's more to learn. And that process never stops. And to be completely honest with you, when I was in university studying all that stuff, I found this process extremely depressing and defeating. And I had to go through a lot of work on myself to get to the point where I could enjoy the process and I could see it as exciting. That every time I learned something new, that there was more to learn. And to be excited and thankful for the opportunity of this infinite journey that is learning the guitar. It takes a lot of work to get to that point, but it's definitely possible. So, the journey of learning guitar never ends if you're the kind of individual who actually prioritizes learning. So there's no such thing as mastering the guitar. And the two things that I want to focus on is that when we use the language of, I really want to master the guitar, there's kind of two issues that I see with that. One is that when you give yourself a vague goal, you kind of shoot yourself in the foot from the very beginning. Because if the goal is vague, then it's going to be really difficult for you to measure your progress. And the way that our human brains work is that we engage in behaviors that we're reinforced for. And there's positive reinforcement and there's negative reinforcement, right? So for example, if you come over to my house and you knock on the door, and I open the door and I'm like, hey, welcome in. Here's some cookies. Have a drink. Sit down. How are you doing? It's so good to see you. That's positive reinforcement. If you enjoy hanging out with me, then you're probably going to want to come over more often. Alternatively, if you knock on my door and I open it and I say, it's terrible to see you. Get out of here. And I slam the door. It's negative reinforcement. You're probably not very likely to come over again. Or at the very least, it's going to decrease the likelihood that you engage in the behavior of coming over to my house, right? So this is how human beings work, is we engage in the behaviors that we've been reinforced for. And one of the most important things with being on our guitar journey is understanding the progress that we're making and being able to see that progress. Because when we see the progress that we make, that's positive reinforcement. And it encourages us, it trains our behavior to continue down that road and continue to develop as guitar players. And alternatively, I don't know why these fireworks are going off. This computer's crazy. I need to figure out how to turn that off. Maybe the computer just is really vibing with this conversation and thinks that I'm saying things that are correct. That's really funny. In the alternative perspective, if you can't see the progress that you're making, then you're going to be very discouraged with your guitar journey. And what is that? It's negative reinforcement. If you're constantly feeling discouraged and you're constantly feeling like you're not making progress, then you increase the likelihood that you're going to put the guitar down and you're not going to practice. And we all know sometimes you put the guitar down for weeks, weeks turn into months, months turn into years. It happens. It totally happens. And that's why this is an important discussion. Having goals that are specific, that we can see clearly, that we can understand clearly, increases the likelihood that we can see the progress that we're making clearly, which is vital positive reinforcement for us to be able to actually continue with this whole guitar thing. Like, that's the actual trick. Is that if you can figure out how to reinforce yourself positively for engaging in the behaviors that you want to engage in, then you will continue to engage in those behaviors. And if you continue to play the guitar consistently, it's pretty likely that you're going to make progress and you're going to get better. So I know that this is a little kind of like esoteric, but when students come to me and they say, I want structure, I want accountability, I want direction, I'm totally happy to provide those things because all of those things are important. But what are they really saying underneath all of that? They're saying, please help me have some positive reinforcement so I can continue engaging in this behavior that I want to do, which is playing the guitar. So that's really the trick. And that's why it's not advisable, it's not beneficial to have the goal of, I want to master the guitar. Because not only is it a vague goal, but it's also an impossible goal. Mastering the guitar never happens. And if your goal is mastering the guitar, and the more that you learn, the more that you understand there is to learn, then the more that you practice and the better that you get, you're going to be negatively reinforcing yourself because you're going to have that negative experience of being even farther away from being a master, because the more that you learn, the more that you understand there is to learn. This stuff is important. I know it kind of seems like maybe I'm getting into the weeds, or maybe it's a little kind of heady. But whether you're the kind of individual who appreciates talking about these concepts specifically or not, this stuff is happening either way. So that's why in my guitar program, I encourage students to be kind to themselves. We prioritize enjoyment. We set up situations so that we can positively reinforce ourselves for practicing the guitar. Because the more that we do that, the more that we're going to practice and the more progress that we're going to make. So that's the first kind of issue that I wanted to address with this idea of mastering the guitar, having that as a goal. The second thing I'd like to address is guitar education opportunities that market mastering the guitar. You know, when you use that phrase of, hey, come take this read this book, read this whatever, and I'm going to teach you how to master the guitar. I think that it is a lazy marketing effort because for the same reasons that we just discussed is that mastering the guitar doesn't exist. So, I mean, think about it. There's tons of books that claim, fretboard mastery, whatever mastery, right? If it was possible for the experience of reading a book to help you master the guitar, then there would be one book that everyone would read, and then they would just have the guitar mastered. And instead of struggling through the process of understanding the guitar, people would just be playing all the time. And we wouldn't need to really practice or get better at anything because we would have it mastered from this one book that we all read and practiced. And you can swap out that book with anything else. Like if it was a university program, then everyone would just go to that university program. If Berklee actually helped you master the guitar, then everyone would just go to Berklee. And I know that Berklee seems like a wonderful place to learn music, and it is for a lot of people. But I can't tell you how many individuals I've met who've gone to Berklee where they they may not be as good as you might think on the guitar. And even the ones that are incredible, they don't claim that they've mastered the guitar. Steve Vai has never said, I've mastered the guitar. Bill Frisell has never said, I've mastered the guitar. It doesn't exist. So if you see a guitar education opportunity, whether it's a book or a video or anything else that uses that language of mastering the guitar, it probably has some helpful information in it, but just understand that if that's the goal that they're setting, and they're setting a goal that doesn't exist, an impossible goal, you might want to think twice about, kind of the quality of the teaching. It might not be as good as something else that has like a very specific goal. So with me, in my guitar program, the specific goal that we have is getting to this point of fretboard fluency. And the reason that I've been able to make getting to the point of fluency so specific is that we break fluency up into 3 sections. One is memorizing the fretboard. And the way that we know that we've memorized the fretboard is I've made these exercises that are based in real time, where you have prompts and you actually have to play all the notes all over the fretboard based off of these prompts in time, as if you were playing with a band, which music happens in time. So we need to have that fast recollection. And then also understanding the music theory. So I ask my students at the end with the final test, we're going to play through intervals, we're going to play melodies in different keys. We're going to go through this music theory together and make sure that you can actually play this stuff on the guitar. So the specific goal that I have with my program, with my students, is here's this test at the end of the program where we very specifically see if you're at the point where you have the fretboard memorized, if you understand the music theory, and if you can put those things together. If you can play the music theory with your fretboard knowledge together. And if you've gotten to that point, then you can consider yourself having that fretboard fluency. Just like you can have fluency in the English language. If you're listening to this right now, you are probably fluent in the English language because you're understanding everything that I'm saying. But to say that someone has mastered the English language, I mean, did Shakespeare master the English language? Maybe you've listened to this whole video and there's probably a section of individuals that have kind of like vibed with this and they're agreeing. And maybe there's a section of individuals who feel like I'm just getting into the semantics. Like, oh, you're just picking apart, definitions of words. And I'll finish with this, which is we're getting even deeper into the kind of esoteric human brain stuff. I think that semantics are actually really important. The way that we define words and the way that we understand what words mean and what words we're using are super, super important. Because the words that we use are basically the thoughts that we have. The thoughts that we have affect our emotions. Our emotions affect our behavior. And our behavior is really the life that we have. Our behavior is super important. Our behavior affects us. Our behavior affects others. There are certain individuals who claim that behavior is the only thing that exists. I'm so distracted by this, by these fireworks. Oh my goodness, it happened again? Is it just because I'm smiling? I'm going to write down on my to-do list right now to turn off the fireworks and make sure that that's off. There are certain individuals who believe that behavior is the only thing that exists. It's the only thing that's important, which is a very, very interesting idea. So going back through it again, the way that we define our words, what we understand words mean, it affects our thoughts. Our thoughts affect our emotions. Our emotions affect our behavior. And our behavior definitely affects our life and our goals and others' lives and other people. The reason that the way that we define words affects our thoughts is because we think in words. If you're sitting down at the guitar and you're kind of struggling through practicing something and you think to yourself, man, I just really want to master the guitar. That's a thought that you can have. And the way that we define the word master, it affects that thought that we're having. And our thoughts affect our emotions. Let me give you a little example. Let's say that you're playing basketball with me and we're playing one-on-one and I step on your toe while we're playing basketball. That's the situation. We're playing basketball, I step on your toe. You're focused on the basketball, and so you don't really see my facial expressions or my body language or whatever. You're just playing basketball and you feel that I've stepped on your toe. That's the situation. Now, let's analyze kind of two different versions of this. One version, you think to yourself, oh, Eric made an accident. He accidentally stepped on my toe. No big deal. Kind of uncomfortable, but not a big deal. That thought elicits a certain emotion, right? Another scenario, you think to yourself, man, that Eric guy, I can't believe he intentionally stepped on my toe to cheat in this basketball game. I cannot believe that I'm playing basketball with this cheater who would intentionally step on my toe. That thought is going to elicit a very different emotion, a very negative emotion, maybe anger, maybe feeling unjust, feeling frustrated, right? So the same situation, the same exact situation from the outside, like reality is exactly the same, but having two different thoughts elicit very different emotions. And those different emotions can elicit very different behavior. With the first situation, if you think that I just stepped on your toe by an accident, then your behavior might be just continuing to play the basketball game. And maybe looking at me and smiling at me, or looking at me and looking what my face looks like to try and get some more information. It's a behavior. If you have the frustrated emotions, you might scream at me. You might throw the basketball. Or you might just be angry inside and kind of harbor that anger, and it comes out later. Maybe later in our relationship, maybe you take it out on someone else. But I'm sure you've all had those days where your frustration can kind of build up over the day. The reason why that happens is because of the thoughts that we're having. So our emotions very much affect our behavior. And if the behavior that we want to engage in is playing the guitar more often, then we want to make sure that we are having emotions that help us to play the guitar more. And the one way that we can have better emotions around guitar playing is having better thoughts around guitar playing, since our thoughts affect our emotions. And the way to have better thoughts is to make sure that we're defining language very precisely. At least that's what I found in my life. The more that I'm able to define words with precision and speak with precision and think with precision, the better my life becomes for that reason. Words affect our thoughts, thoughts affect our emotions, emotions affect our behavior, behavior affects our life. That has been my experience. And that's why it's important to understand that mastering the guitar is not something that happens. It is an ideal to strive towards, but not a goal to set for ourselves. So comment below if you thought that any of this was interesting. I don't know how much I'll continue to kind of talk through these human behavior, human brain kind of ideas. Because, some people just want to learn about the guitar and play guitar. So let me know if you found this interesting or helpful at all. And thanks for hanging out. What I'd really love for you to do is to write in the comments a specific goal that you have with the guitar. It could be, I want to practice every day for 2 weeks. It's a great goal. It could be, I want to learn how to play Stairway to Heaven at the tempo of the track so I can play along with the track. It's a great specific goal. I mean, already, as I'm giving these examples of specific goals, doesn't it feel lighter? Isn't that so much lighter and so much more reasonable than my goal is to master the guitar, or my goal is to get better at the guitar, or my goal is to learn everything that I can, or my goal is to pick up a lot of tips and tricks so that I can get better. Like, these vague goals produce vague outcomes. Or, to speak more precisely, having a vague goal increases the likelihood that you're going to have a vague outcome. So, set specific goals for yourself and try to be precise with your language and it will probably improve your life. At least that's been my experience. Thank you for hanging out. I love studying this stuff with all of you and all the students in my guitar program. If you're interested about learning more about my guitar program, I have some videos here on YouTube that explain it. You could book a call with me with the calendar link. You could reach out to me on Instagram. Lots of ways that we can connect. And I hope you have a wonderful time pursuing your specific goal this week and this month. And I'll see you in the next video.